Okay, the recorder's on, and we're looking at The Voice of Knowledge. This is by Miguel Ruiz, and this is Chapter 8, Common Sense and Blind Faith. I'm going to turn on the recording, and remember that the recording is an abridged version of the book, so it's a little awkward when I try to fix on the screen where exactly we're at. But I'll keep the screen, and I'll still scroll through the story on the screen, the chapter, because sometimes it's helpful to have those text anchors to remind us later what we want to talk about in the in-between when we look at the points to ponder in between the chapters. I'll put the recording on for Chapter 8.
Chapter 8, Common Sense and Blind Faith. When I started teaching this philosophy, one of my challenges was to share the wisdom of my tradition without the superstition. I wanted to take away the nonsense and keep the common sense. When it comes to common sense, there's no difference between the Toltec tradition, the Christian tradition, the Buddhist tradition, or any other tradition. The difference is in the story. Each philosophy has tried to explain with symbols something that is so difficult to say with words. The masters witnessed the truth and created a story, depending on what they believed. The story became mythology, and the people who were not masters created all of the superstition and lies. That is why I don't believe in following gurus or idolizing heroes. We are our own gurus, our own heroes. What I'm sharing with you is the way I live my life, but I'm not telling you how to live your life. It's not my business. It's yours. But seeing the way that I dream can give you an idea of what you can do with your dream. In one moment, you can return to your common sense, to your own integrity. You can have clarity again and see what others cannot see. You can live with awareness and recover a wonderful power that humans gave up long ago. Faith. Faith is a force that comes from our integrity. It's the expression of what we really are. Faith is the power of our creation, because we use faith to create and transform our life story. Different traditions have called this power by different names. The Toltec call it intent, but I prefer to call it faith. Let's see if we can understand why faith is so important. When we talk about faith, we're also talking about the power of the word. The word is pure magic. It is a power that comes directly from God, and faith is the force that directs this power. Everything in our virtual reality is created with the word because we use the word for the creation of our story. Humans have the most wonderful imagination. Beginning with the word, we form a language. With a language, we try to make sense out of everything we experience. First, we agree about the sound and meaning of each word. Then, just by remembering the sound of the words, we can communicate with other dreamers about our virtual reality. We give names to everything we perceive. We choose words as symbols, and these symbols have the power to reproduce a dream in our head. For example, just hearing the word horse can reproduce an entire image in our mind. That's how a symbol works, but it can even be more powerful than that. Just by saying two words, The Godfather, a whole movie can appear in our mind. The word as a symbol has the magic and power of creation because it can reproduce an image, a concept, or an entire situation in our imagination. Faith is so important because it's the force that gives life to every concept we store in our mind. Faith holds all of these symbols together and gives sense and direction to the entire dream. Remember, we invest our faith by making an agreement. When we agree with a concept, we accept it without any doubt, and the concept becomes a part of us. If we don't agree with the concept, our faith is not there, and we don't keep it in our memory.
Let me just point out that he's speaking about something that's dynamic and occurring all the time. So sometime my faith, or what I believe, how I interpret the situations and circumstances of my everyday reality apart from anyone else, sometimes seem to contradict or sometimes seem to confuse the concepts that my ideas are based on. So he is helping us to see that our concepts, in fact, and our interpretations and our interaction and use of our concepts becomes part of this problem of the background or the common usage of these concepts, and they become confusing sometimes. So it's important to realize he's not just talking about a one-time thing. He's talking about their unconscious is actually actively using these ideas that you have interpreted and have built as your faith, whatever that might be. Whether you say you have faith or don't have faith, it doesn't matter. You have faith in what your unconscious is doing for you, or you don't have faith in what your unconscious is doing for you. He's helping us to see we need to bypass that kind of faith and find an anchor, find a truth, find something permanent. He's helping us to see that the dream itself is always going to be including some misdirections, some confusions, some contradictions even. So it's important to notice this is going on an ongoing basis. Presence is going to be very important as we develop presence, so that we don't have to always be acting according to domestication or our unconsciousness.
If you can imagine that every belief, every concept, every opinion is like a brick, then our faith is the mortar that holds the bricks together. The way we start putting these bricks together is by using our attention. With our attention, we have the power to discriminate and focus on what we want to perceive. The attention is also the part of our mind that we use to transfer information from person to person. By hooking someone's attention, we create a channel of communication, and through that channel, we can send and receive information. This is how we teach, and this is how we learn. As I've said, our parents hook our attention and teach us the meaning of words. We agree, and through language we start to build the edifice of knowledge. Together, all of our beliefs form a structure that tells us what we believe we are. The Toltec called this the human form. The human form is not the form of our physical body. The human form is everything we believe about being a human. It's the structure of our whole story, our personal tree of knowledge. This structure is almost as solid as our physical body because our faith makes it rigid.
So our faith is being misused to apply it to what we believe. What we believe is derived. It's an evolution, and the structure, in fact, of it is useless or meaningless. It's not true. And this is why I say earlier on, in fact, we're not born into a structure that makes any sense. We're born into a structure that, in fact, is designed for fight or flight. It's designed for survival. It's designed for procreation. It's not designed for truth. It's not designed to know what the truth is. So we're not born into a body that knows the truth. We're born into a body that can become neutral because it should be neutral, in which case our minds can be liberated from all of its identification with all of its perhaps usefulness at this or usefulness at that, and all these separated uses of the body. However, the mind itself has to be liberated from that. And the mind itself is not part of the structure. The mind itself is constructing, however, this structure according to its interpretations, according to its beliefs, according to its faith. We need to liberate our mind from the use of faith in any limited form. Limitations are what the world outside ourselves are made to reflect back to us as projections of this idea of separation. In the truth, in fact, when we extend this, our own truth now becomes a liberating factor in terms of its use. It liberates us from the world outside ourselves. It also does help to liberate others in the world as well that want to see beyond the reflections of the untruth and begin to want to see the peacefulness, the calm, the similarities instead of the differences, but also to be elevated above the differences, above the change, above the impermanence, above the temporary, into a more permanent realization of an infinite truth that can't be changed by the finite untruth. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for something that already exists, however, so we're actually trying to remember it. So when the Toltecs say, in fact, that we're born with this knowledge or this awareness or whatever, I say, well, that's sort of inaccurate. We're not born with it. We may, however, connect to it during the course of our physical lives, true, but it's in our infinite mind where we connect to it, not in our finite human minds. Which is why I make a distinction about that, because that's a dualistic way of seeing the world, which they say already. They indicate, no, we don't really want to look at the world in terms of its dualistic nature, because that's destructive or it's deceptive or it's difficult, it's separating, it's temporary. So they know the truth, but for some reason they still seem to believe that we're born into bodies for a good purpose. And I say, well, the only good purpose is to use the body then for a means to the end of knowing the truth, of connecting with your mind freed of all of the rigidity, all the structure, all of the difficulties that make form necessary.
You call yourself a human, and that is what makes you a human. Your faith is invested in your story, mostly in the main character of your story, and that's the main problem. The most powerful part of you, your faith, is invested in the liar who lives in your head. Through your faith, you give life to all of those lies. The result is the way you live your life in the present moment, because you believe in what you believe you are without any doubt. The rest is just action-reaction. Every habit is a setup for you to perform the role of your main character. The storyteller has power over you because you have faith in the story it tells you. Once you support the story with your faith, it doesn't matter whether the story is the truth. You believe it. Thy will be done. That is why Jesus said that if you have just a little faith, you can move mountains. But why do we feel that we hardly have faith? Well, our faith is strong and powerful, but our faith is invested in all of the knowledge in our head. It's trapped in the structure of the tree of knowledge. Our faith is not in the voice of our story, and it's not in our reasoning mind. Just because we say, I will succeed, doesn't mean that our faith follows those words. No, there may be another belief that is stronger and deeper, and it's telling us you will not succeed. And that is what happens. It doesn't matter what we do, we fail. That is why you cannot change yourself just by wishing to change. No, you need to really challenge what you believe you are, especially the beliefs that limit the expression of your life. You need to challenge every belief that you use to judge yourself, to reject yourself, to make yourself little. I remember one of my apprentices asking, why is it so difficult to change my beliefs? And I told him, well, you understand that what you believe you are is not the truth. It's a story. You understand that very well, but you don't believe it. And that is what makes the difference. If you really believe it, if your faith is there, then you change. So yes, it is possible to change what we believe, to recreate the dream of our life, but first we need to free our faith. And the way to do that is through the truth. The truth is our sword. It's the only weapon we have against the lies. Only the truth can free the faith that's trapped in the structure of our lies. But with our faith invested in the lies, we no longer see the truth. The lies blind our faith, the power of our creation. Blind faith is a powerful concept. When our faith is blind, we no longer follow the truth. That is what happened when we ate the fruit of the tree of knowledge. We believed the lies, our faith was blinded, and we followed an illusion that was not in lies is death because we lose our power of creation, which is our connection with life or God. We fall into the illusion that we're separate from life, and this leads to self-destruction and death. Real faith, or free faith, is what you're feeling in this moment. This moment is real. You have faith in life, faith in yourself, faith for no reason. This is the power of your creation in the moment. From this point of power, you can create whatever you want to create in any direction. Blind faith is faith without awareness. But when your faith has awareness, that's a different story. Then you never use the power of your faith against yourself, which means you are impeccable with your word. When you're impeccable with your word, your entire life improves in every direction. Why? Because your word goes directly to the main character of your story, where most of your faith is invested. To be impeccable with your word means that you never use the word against yourself in the creation of your story. The way to change what you believe about yourself is to take your faith out of the lies. This is the key to changing your story. This is your dream quest, and nobody can do it but you. You have to face your own story. And what you'll face, of course, is the main character. Begin by looking at the main character as if it is somebody else, not you. Your life story is like a book about you. Detach from the story and become aware of your own creation. Review the story of your life since you were a child. All of the growth you've experienced, all of your relationships. Simply take an inventory and perceive the images without any judgment if you can do that. Face your life story with your love, and you'll experience the most incredible dream quest.
Okay, so this is for people that are accustomed to or realize that there's our 12 steps in the recovery program. This is the beginning of the middle steps in the recovery program. Before the middle steps in the recovery program, the idea was to make our decisions with the God of our understanding. In other words, to look at these inventories, which we might write down for ourselves about our failures, about our difficulties, about our frustrations, and so on, that we would write them down. We now have a detached way to look at them from the perspective of making decisions and from the perspective of a new conscious contact with the God of our understanding. So it's an important aspect of the steps in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 to allow ourselves room to grow by allowing ourselves in our mind to remain open to the lessons of the past. Then in fact we begin to be able to see our character shortcomings and difficulties and temporary situations and judgments and circumstances and concepts. We begin to see all of that in a new light. The new light is to make all of our decisions with the God of our understanding. In the new light of this, then, we come to the 10th step. After having done maybe an adequate job of the middle steps, we come to the 10th step, which says we need to do this simple sort of evaluation every day, at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, and even during the middle of the day, that we be open-minded enough to always recover from our sense of ourself wrong, or our sense of someone else wrong. All of our sense about wrong, in fact, is always going to need to be addressed, because it's always going to lead to more shortcomings, more difficulties, more frustration, more worries, more concerns, more resentments, more bitterness, and so on and so forth. All wrong always leads in the wrong direction. All right is all that leads in the right direction. So it's the right direction and the correction of the right direction in step 10 that allows us to see all of the previous steps were necessary and can be practiced in the 10th step. So the 10th step of the recovery program becomes a very important step, but it also it rests very strongly now on these middle steps, where in fact we continue to do the middle steps as we continue to grow, as we continue to make progress. This is exactly what these paragraphs here are talking about looking at your main character, looking at yourself as the dream character, looking at yourself as the dreamer of the dream character, seeing yourself, in fact, being able to catch yourself before you get carried away, before you involve yourself in some shortcomings and some character defects and some concepts and use of your beliefs in such a way as to create more confusion or more contradictions or more resentments or regrets. Rather than create those, rather than make those, we see that there is a core sense about ourselves in which this awareness resides now as our being. So we're seeing from this awareness that we are the being of this awareness, and the being of this awareness does not identify as easily with all of the difficulties, frustrations, and differences and changes that seem to occur in the world outside ourselves. We stop identifying with all of that, and we therefore can escape this domestication at these crucial moments where, in fact, we used to make mistakes or fall back into our addictions or fall back into our drama or fall back into our old ways. We now see this is a path here for the realization of there's a better way to perceive it. So let me perceive it instead from peace and from comfort and from this idea that I can step back from all that seems to be wrong, realizing that whatever is wrong can't be helpful to me except when I see it as a lesson, is that there must be something more right instead then. That's what I'm looking for. What's more right instead then? So your own story begins to develop now into an awareness, and the awareness merging with essentially with your story. You're taking your story out of the world outside yourself, putting your story into the world inside yourself, where it can be shown to you in a different way, and it can be corrected in your mind in this awareness of making your decisions with the God of your understanding. That will make sense to you as you do it. It won't necessarily make sense to you if you don't practice in meditative, mindful, prayerful way to find this comfort and peace and joy, and then to extend it.
The challenge is to recover the power of your faith and no longer be blinded by lies. But if you want to face the tyrant that you've created, you need to have faith. And the problem is that the faith you've invested in your creation is 1,000 times stronger than the faith you now have left. So where are you going to find the faith to face your own creation if your creation is eating every ounce of your faith? Well, if you cannot find faith within you, there's a lot of faith outside of you. The point is to learn how to gather all of the faith that you need to free yourself from the structure of your lies. That is why humans perform rituals, to gather more faith. When you go to any church and you pray or sing or chant, you're gathering power and faith from these rituals. Your attention is focused on the ritual, and this opens a channel to your faith. Your faith follows the ritual, and with your attention hooked into that channel, it is possible to recover your faith. Ritual can help us to gather faith from nature and to build faith with one another as a human community. When people gather together, when they love, they experience tremendous faith. This is what you're doing every time you go to church, anytime you pray. When you pray and perform rituals, you gather faith that is not really your own faith, but it is faith that you can use to recover your own. Both prayer and ritual offer an intense action to stop the voice of knowledge from abusing the emotional body. When you pray, you commune with the Divine Spirit. Prayer creates a bridge that goes from the real you into the Divine Spirit, pushing aside the main character of your story. This is the key, because the main character of your story is the only thing between you and the Divine Spirit. Prayer and ritual help to stop the judgments and all the voices talking in your head that tell you why something isn't possible. And if you believe 100% in what you want to accomplish with a prayer or ritual, you multiply your intent. All of the religions, with all of their different rituals, are wonderful because they provide a way for you to gather the power to break at least some of the self-limiting agreements you've made. Every time you break an agreement, the faith invested in that agreement comes back to you, and you recover a little more of your faith. restore your faith in the truth and you take it out of the lies, the result is that you become authentic. Your emotional body becomes the way it was when you were a child, and you return to your own common sense. I cannot say that I invented this or that I've discovered something new. Everything I'm sharing with you has been in this world for thousands of years, not only in Mexico, but in Egypt, India, Greece, Rome. Common sense exists in all of us, but we cannot see it with our attention focused on the lies we believe. Lies make everything complicated, when the truth is very simple. I think now is the time to return to the truth, to common sense, to the simplicity of life itself. Now we know that the lies are so powerful that they blind us. Well, the truth is so powerful that when we finally return to the truth, our entire reality changes. Truth brings us back to paradise, where we experience a strong communion of love with God, with life, with all of creation. When you release your faith from all the lies, you free your will. And when your will is free, you can finally make a choice. The voice in your head gives you the illusion that you can make a choice, that you have free will. Well, do you really believe that it's your choice to hurt yourself, to abuse yourself? How can you say that you have free will when you choose to hurt the people you love, when you judge your partner or your children and make them miserable with your judgment? I think it's obvious that our will is not free. Just imagine if you really have the power to make your own choices. Do you really choose to sabotage your own happiness or your own love? Do you choose to judge yourself, to blame yourself, to live your life in shame and in guilt? Do you choose to believe that you are not beautiful, that you don't deserve to be happy because you're not worth it? If you have free will, you choose the opposite. You choose happiness and love, peace and harmony. You choose to play, to enjoy life. You no longer choose drama. If in the present moment you're choosing drama, it's because you have no choice. It's a habit. It's because you were programmed to be that way and you don't even know that you have the power to make a different choice. Something else in your head is making the choice, and it's the voice of the liar. When you put your faith in truth instead of in lies, your will is free. Your choices come from your integrity, not from the program in your head. Now you believe whatever you want to believe, and when you have the power to believe whatever you want, something very interesting happens. What you want is to love. You don't want anything else but love, because you know that what is not love is not the truth. Why would we consciously decide to have a fight with the people we love the most? It's not that we want to fight. When we're children and we gather with other children, it's because we want to play. We want to have fun and enjoy life. When we grow up and enter into a relationship, mainly a romantic relationship, is it because we want to create emotional pain and drama? No, common sense tells us that we want to play together. We want to have fun exploring life together. But the Prince of Lies, who controls the voice of knowledge, represses our common sense. Common sense is wisdom, and wisdom is different from knowledge. You're wise when you no longer act against yourself. You're wise when you live in harmony with yourself, with your own kind, with all of creation. Right now you have a choice. What are you going to do with this information? What happens if you don't believe in lies? Take a moment to put your attention on your feelings, to feel all of the possibilities for your life if your faith is no longer blind. If you recover your faith from lies, your suffering is over. Your judgments are over. You no longer live with guilt, shame, anger, or jealousy. You no longer have the need to be good enough for anybody, including yourself. You accept what you are, even if you don't know what you are. And that is wisdom. Just imagine that you recover the power to make your own choices because you no longer believe the storyteller. You enjoy your life with plenty Imagine how you treat your partner and your children if you no longer believe in lies. Just imagine the change in the whole of humanity out of something so simple, not believing in lies.
So the whole collection of all the stories is the lie. So all the dream characters that we meet are part of the lie. So seeing beyond the dream characters, what we're really looking for is a sense about the truth that's beyond the dream characters, that's beyond the world, that's beyond forms. It's within this looking at forms within ourselves where there's no need for forms that we begin to see the glimmer of truth reflected now back to us from the world outside ourselves, because we stop projecting the untruth into the world. We instead extend the truth, peace, courteousness, joy, and so on forth, and so forth, that we can identify and recognize as truth, as whole, as part of what love really is. This is what we now extend to the world. Only in extending this to the world do we stay within the awareness which allows us to see wrongness when wrongness shows its ugly neediness, to see beyond wrongness to the fact that wrongness can't exist. In fact, when we look inside ourselves to see only the truth, only the reflections of the truth, then is what we want to see in the world outside ourselves. And as we begin to see other than that, we begin to say to ourselves, aha, it's time to practice step 10. Let me step back from this. Let me stop reacting to what it seems to be that I see in the world outside myself, because it's identifying itself in my mind as it's wrong. I'm not awake enough to notice that my mind has just slipped into the contradictions and confusion and chaos of the world made wrong outside myself. The world cannot really be made wrong outside myself and be true, because it separates itself from the truth in that perception of that there's something wrong. In that perception that there's something wrong, I have conditioned myself now to living in the lie as part of the lie. I'm going to go through the points, but I just wonder if there are any questions.
Eric, that's exactly what was going on with me the other day. I was believing in things about me. I was judging myself, and I was beating myself up for crying. I was beating myself up for some of the things that happened in my past that had nothing to do with me, but I was transferring their pain onto me. So I was believing in the lies instead of in the reality that all of that is over. All of that is in my past. And now I can believe in the truth. I can believe in my faith. And my faith is that I want to live without chaos and drama. That's my truth now. I don't want to live in chaos and drama, but I have a fear that I'm going to go back there. And this is really helping me right now, because it's telling me to stop believing in the lies.
Right. This is an elevation to a level above the battleground, above the untruth. So you can see, in fact, I now have memory and experience of realizing there's a greater truth than suffering. I do not need suffering to see the truth. I need peace, comfort within myself, rest in strength, strengthen myself in rest. This is what I need. I need this in prayer. I need this in meditation. I need this in sleep. I need this in exercise. I need this in my diet. This is what helps me to realize strengthening is the way of realizing a greater truth and a greater truth. Strengthening is the way. Never let me identify too long with my weakness, because identifying with my weakness and reacting to it is, in fact, what I always see as what's wrong.
But when
Right,
I'm
right.
in that, when I'm in that, I really like all of this
Mm.
knowledge that I'm
Get it?
gaining.
Yes.
It goes for
Mm.
crap. Like
Dissociate into the experiences of separation, of fear, of confusion. You dissociate it to it. That's the dream character. The dream character
okay,
cannot remember the truth because the dream character is not really a continuous realization of the truth. The dream character is the experience of, the images of, the untruth is what the dream character represents, always represents the untruth.
so is that the ego?
Yeah, we can refer to it as an ego, but what we're projecting it, so it's actually being used by our bodies.
Okay, thank you.
Mm. Robin?
Eric, I just wanted to say something
Mm.
about ritual.
Mm.
Um, I've been on this path for a year or so, and I've been chastising myself a lot for not having enough what I called structure.
Mm.
And structure was really difficult for me. But ritual, ritual comes to me gently and lovingly.
Mm.
I've just pushed it away because it felt like I was telling myself this lie that it was religion,
I see.
and that I didn't want anything to do with religion. And so it's just, I don't have a question. It's just an observation
Yeah.
that,
Mm.
that, structure,
Yeah.
for me, it's heavy handed, it's punitive. There's failure in it and so forth.
Mm.
But ritual is gentle and loving.
Yes, and this is
It
why the Four
comes,
Agreements works because
it
it
comes
seems to be very
easily.
hard it seems to be very harsh and hard sometimes to use the Four Agreements. To use the Fifth Agreement makes it a little more gentle. To see rituals now of realizing that the increasing of our joy is always the objective here, or the progress is always the objective here. To see that makes it even softer because now we can form rituals. Now we can participate with others in rituals of their choosing, even, and enjoy ourselves. And this is what the whole realization of presence is really about. It's really about enjoying ourselves with others, even if they can't enjoy themselves, even if they're suffering. We can see through the suffering because of realization that the suffering isn't necessary to see the truth. We don't have to look so closely at the suffering as to suffer, to commiserate, to be lost in the suffering with them. We don't have to do that. We can stay within peace and calm and realization of the truth is you will recover from that. All things that are wrong will always change. All things that are right will never change. What we're looking for is staying within all things that are right, not all things that are wrong.
So I think that the approach is just to be loving and let
Exactly.
the
Go with the gentle rituals that you're identifying as peaceful, and calming, and enjoyable for yourself. Exactly. Exactly. Go on those hikes.
oh yes, hikes are brilliant for me. They're just where I find my peace.
Exactly. Let's look at the points to ponder. I'll read them through, and after I read them through, then we can continue the discussion as long as we want to. There's no hurry to go through these chapters just yet, really, but I would probably think that we're going to cover maybe two of them today. It would be good if we did, but it doesn't matter to me. Sooner or later, it will matter to me, but today it doesn't. Let me go through these now. The word is pure magic. It is a power that comes directly from God, and faith is the force that directs that power. Everything in our virtual reality is created with the Word. We use the Word for the creation of our story to make sense out of everything we experience. Faith is the force that gives life to every word, to every belief that we store in our mind. If we agree with a concept, our faith is there and we keep it in our memory. Faith is the mortar that holds our beliefs together and gives sense and direction to the entire dream. The attention is that part of our mind that we use to transfer information from person to person. By hooking the attention, we create a channel of communication, and through that channel, we can send and receive information. I might come back to that at some time in the future, but for the time being, I'm not going to disagree with it at all. The structure of our knowledge controls the dream of our life because our faith lives in that structure. Our faith is not in the voice of our story. It's not in our reasoning mind. Our faith is trapped in the structure of our knowledge, and only the truth can set it free. Real faith, or free faith, is what you are feeling in this moment. This moment is real. This moment right now is what he's talking about. You have faith in life, faith in yourself, faith for no reason. This is the power of your creation in the moment. If you're freed at the moment in your mind not to identify with untruths, not to identify with harm, suffering, and so forth, contradictions and confusion, if you're free in your mind, then this is what he's talking about. From this point of power, you can create whatever you want to create in any direction. Blind faith leads us nowhere because it doesn't follow the truth. With lies blinding our faith, we fall into illusions that we are separate from God, and we lose our power of creation. When we release our faith from the lies, we recover our free will and make our own choices. We recover the power to believe whatever we want to believe, and when we have the power to believe whatever we want, all that we want is to love. So I'm a non-dual teacher, and so some of these things don't quite make sense the way they're stated here. However, they're progress, and progress is what we're looking for, is increasing our faith of peace, joy, kindness, love. All that is love, that's what we're looking for, the increasing of that. We're not looking to be reactive to what's wrong. We're not looking to be trapped in anything that's wrong. We're looking to escape from that weakness into the strengthening of the increasing of truth in our mind. So our mind can be freed of all of its associations, all of its attachments, and all the difficulties that seem to be presented to it. It now chooses not to be trapped in any of those. It chooses to see itself free of that. That's the awareness that he's talking about. The awareness that he's talking about is not really separate from you. The awareness is your extension of yourself when you're in peace. Your extension of yourself then is what you extend to the world, and in extending to the world to the truth of your best ability to understand the truth, in the understanding of the God of your understanding, to be with the God of your understanding in that truth, then your extending of that is increasingly strengthening you, and also is feeding others as well. The main objective, however, is to see the increasing of the truth, and in the increasing of the truth, to only give, therefore, to the best of your ability, what is actually true to anyone that you're with. This is enjoyable, and that's what I talk about when I say we should enjoy who we're with. We should enjoy being able to share what is genuine and authentic about ourselves. Knowing what's genuine and authentic about ourselves takes an evolutionary process, because the body and has been used for a period of time to be surviving and procreating and not to care about the truth. The body is not our enemy, but it's been used incorrectly by our minds that identified with struggle, suffering, difficulties, and temporary realizations of the untruth as if it were the truth. So anybody want to add anything to the points to ponder or anything else from this chapter? This would be a good time to do that.
Eric, this chapter has a lot in it.
Mm-hmm.
And what keeps coming to me is that when we go back to step 3, where we're making a decision
Mm-hmm.
to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understand him.
Mm-hmm.
To simplify what I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
for me, is that what I'm reading here is, when I make that decision, I am leaving the lies behind me, and I'm turning all of my faith into my higher power, which is really my truth.
Yeah, you're showing your higher power the insanity. Remember the steps. The third step is the answer to the second step dilemma. What's insanity? Insanity is everything that is outside of my mind, everything that is fanciful, everything that's untrue, everything that's chaos, everything that's any kind of difficulty whatsoever. That's all the insanity. I'm always bringing the insanity into the third step because the third step says, okay, I want to look beyond the fantasies. I want to look beyond the past. I want to see into the truth. Let me put aside all of what I thought, all of what I believed, all of what I did. Let me put all that aside into making my next decision with the God of
Okay.
understanding, which says all that is insanity. Everything you did before this moment is insanity.
Okay. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Sounds like insanity too. Okay.
You may be fading a little bit. I'm not sure exactly what you said.
I think that when it's insanity, it feels like insanity.
It begins to, yes, it begins to be able to be identified with insanity when we stop identifying with it as necessary. Yes. It's no longer important to us, more important to us than the truth and making better decisions. So it becomes insanity. We see it then. Yeah. Yeah. That's what we do to see beyond it. We see the third step, make my next decision more properly, peacefully, calmly, towards love.
Eric, when you say steps, you are always talking about the 12 steps, right?
Yeah, 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 I am, in a sense, yes. I'm not really blending anything. I am talking about a structure, and the structure is rituals, which are increasingly strengthening my mind to not associate with the change, the difficulties, the confusion, the sadness, the anger, the bitterness, the resentments, the regrets. I don't want to identify with any of that. I want to use that as my grounding for realizing that I've been living in insanity. Everything in the past is insane. Everything of the future will be insane if I don't stop living the way I've been living up to now. But now I can choose, in this moment, to live more peacefully, more comfortably, and to extend that peace and joy. And doing so, to help to liberate myself in the next moment of insanity, because there will be a next moment of insanity when I'm in the world outside of myself, where there is always a future of possibilities of insanity. So staying present, quite important. You may be fading
Hi,
again. Okay.
Marlene.
Okay.
I'll throw in a comment. What what I'm looking at is the attention that we use to transfer information from one person to another. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing. The
Sure.
attention. I'm thinking of where do I put my attention?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been like, kind of being more of an observer than a reactor,
Yeah.
and writing down what just happened. And what I notice is that when I don't do that, I will forget what exactly happened and believe the story about what happened from somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And in turn, blame myself. And then again, I'm going to try and do better. But that doesn't work
Yeah.
because it's the story, it's alive.
Well, actually, you're talking about oscillating.
Oh, am I?
You're going between who you are and who they think you are and who you think you are. You're getting lost
Oh,
in
yeah.
oscillating. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's oscillating. Oh, I hate that. No wonder I'm kind of
Yeah. It is
uncomfortable.
uncomfortable.
So, I'm at peace right now because I like the idea of, you know, resolving it with a higher power or through God, as I understand God, and allowing that the other person may be wrong rather than I having to be wrong all the time, and to just let it be and not to, not to go there. I was taking
Yeah.
notes
Wrongness.
about what.
We always step back from wrongness in our mind to realize I
Oh,
don't want to
yeah.
be weakened and suffer by the past or by my projections about the future. When that begins to happen, I want to step back from it because otherwise I'm going to be oscillating. I'm going to get lost again. So I step back from it in my mind to reflect upon what is true. What the best of my ability I want to identify in awareness, the best of my ability I want to identify with what's true. Now the truth is of course incomplete as I'm still living as a separated being, which must oscillate sometimes. Because in fact there is
What is
constant change.
oscillating again? It's from what to what?
Yeah, identify with the changes that occur, with the differences, even with the similarities. I identify with them, and I begin to lose track of my awareness of peace and kindness and joy, and who I choose to actually be strengthened by. Myself, I choose
Right.
to
So
be strengthened by
then
God.
losing the peace.
Yes. So I always choose again, and I always choose again, and I always choose again. I continue to choose again so long as I'm necessary to do so without reacting to what's going on, even though I might be speaking at the time. I learn to stay within my identification of awareness rather than my identification of a separated self.
Thank you very much.
I'm trading up to a better way to perceive when I stay in touch with awareness, even though I'm not completely only aware, I am interacting in the dream, and yet it's awareness that speaks through me more so than in fact when I'm reactive and fancifully dealing with the dream itself. The dream is very unimportant compared to the truth. There are aspects of the dream in which we choose to interact within the dream. These become important more so when in fact we can increase our strength while we're doing so. So, use of the truth and increasing of the truth can be useful to us even when we interact with others if we stay within the awareness of the increasing of the truth in our mind. So we choose to speak to the best of our ability from what we remember of the truth as we speak. But eventually also the truth begins to speak through us without any effort.
There's a lot right parallel to often what's wrong, and that can cause oscillation, like the blender. Oh yeah, I spilled my coffee. So focusing on what's right is helpful.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm just going to play the next recording if it's not too long. Let me just check it out. Forgot how long this chapter might be. I'm going to click it on here to see.
Chapter.
It's about 15 minutes. So actually we're going to be able to listen to Transforming the Storyteller. We're not actually going to be able to react to it, and I won't say anything during the course of chapter 9 unless you don't want to go on, in which case we'll continue to talk about chapter 8 or whatever is on your mind. Don't forget you're all muted. Okay, I'm going to go on then. About 15 minutes of chapter 9.
Chapter 9. Transforming the Storyteller. Now you can see how you create the dream of your life, and you know that your life is a story. Without awareness, the question is, are you happy with your story? You can be whatever you want to be because you're the artist, and your life is your creation. It's your comedy or your drama. And if the story is changing anyway, then why not direct the change with awareness? As an artist with awareness, you can see if you like your art, and you can practice making it better. Practice makes the master, but it's action that makes the difference. To change the story of your life is what the Toltec call the mastery of transformation. To master transformation is to live in the present moment all of the time. Life is an eternal now, because the force of life is creating and transforming everything right now. How are you going to change your story? Well, you create your story according to what you believe about yourself. And the way to transform what you believe about yourself is to unlearn what you've already learned. When you unlearn, your faith returns to you. Your personal power increases, and you can invest your faith in new beliefs. If you're ready to take your faith out of the lies, then remember, don't believe yourself, and don't believe anybody else. This will give you clarity about many things, but you may need a little support to stop believing the lies and to start breaking all of the agreements that go against yourself. The 4 agreements offer this support. You can transform your entire story just by practicing these 4 agreements. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best. Many tools can help you change your story, but the 4 agreements are my favorite tools for transformation. Just by following these agreements, you challenge all of the opinions that are nothing but superstition and lies. Be impeccable with your word because you use the word to create your story. Don't take anything personally because you live in your own story and other people live in their own story. Don't make assumptions because most assumptions are not the truth, they're fiction. And when the storyteller makes up stories, especially about other storytellers, this creates big drama. Always do your best, because this keeps the voice of knowledge from judging you, and by taking action, you keep the voice from talking to you. The first agreement, be impeccable with your word, is the supreme agreement because it helps you to recognize all of the lies that rule your life. To be impeccable is to use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. The other 3 agreements are more support for the first agreement. They're the practice that makes the master. But the goal is the first agreement. By practicing all 4 agreements, the moment comes when you experience the truth and your emotional reaction is incredible. Let's take a closer look at each agreement. The first agreement, be impeccable with your word, means you never use the power of the word against yourself in the creation of your story. Impeccable means without sin. Anything you do that goes against yourself is a sin. When you believe in lies, you're using the power of the word against yourself. When you believe that nobody likes you, that you'll never make it, you're using the word against yourself. When you're impeccable, you never speak against yourself. You have no beliefs that go against yourself, and you never help anybody else to go against you. To be impeccable means that you don't use your own knowledge against yourself, and you don't allow the voice in your head to abuse you. Remember, the word is your power because you use the word to create the main character of your story. Every self-opinion, every belief is made by words. I'm smart, I'm stupid, I'm beautiful, I'm ugly. This is powerful. But your word is even more powerful because it also represents you when you interact with other dreamers. Every time you speak, your thought becomes sound. Your thought becomes the word, and now it can go into other people's minds. If their minds are fertile for that kind of seed, they eat it, and now that thought lives inside of them too. The word is a force that you cannot see, but you can see the manifestation of the force, which is your own life. How do you know when you're using the word impeccably? Well, when you're happy, when you feel good about yourself, when you feel love. How do you know when you're using the word against yourself? When you're suffering with envy, anger, or sadness. Suffering of all kinds is the result of misusing the word. It is the result of believing in knowledge contaminated with lies. If you clean up the word, you recover the impeccability of the word, and you never betray yourself. If you agree to be impeccable with your word, this is enough for you to return to the paradise that humans lost. It's enough to bring you back to the truth and to transform your whole story. Be impeccable with your word. The second agreement, don't take anything personally, will help you to break the many lies you agreed to believe in. When you take things things personally, you react and feel hurt, and this creates emotional poison. Then you want revenge, you want to get even, and you use the word against other people. Not taking anything personally gives you immunity to emotional poison in all your relationships. You no longer lose control and react because you're emotionally hurt. This gives you clarity, which puts you a step ahead of other people who cannot see their own stories. The second agreement will guide you in breaking hundreds of little lies until it hits the core of all the lies in your life. When this happens, the whole edifice of knowledge collapses, and you have a second chance to create another story in your own way. The Toltec call this losing the human form. When you lose the human form, you have the opportunity to choose what to believe according to your integrity. When you were a child, you never had the opportunity to make a choice about what to believe. Everything you agreed to believe was imposed upon you. Now you have an opportunity you didn't have when you were a child. You can use your attention for the second time to base your story on the truth instead of on lies. The Toltec call this the dream of the second attention. I call it your second story because it's still a story, but now it's your choice. When you lose the human form, you recover the power of your faith and your will is free again. What you can do with that faith has no limits. But the goal is not to save the world. No, the only mission you have in life is to make yourself happy. It's that simple. And the only way that you can make yourself happy is to create a story that will make you happy. You cannot control what is happening around you, but you can control the way you tell the story. You can relate the story as a big melodrama and be sad and depressed about everything that happens to you, or you can relate the story without all of the drama. The third agreement, don't make assumptions, is a big ticket to personal freedom. When you make assumptions, the storyteller is making up a story. You believe the story, and then fail to ask questions that might shed some light on the truth. Assumptions create a whole world of illusion that is not true at all, but you believe it. Making assumptions and then taking them personally is the beginning of hell in this world. Almost all human conflict is based on this. To be aware is to see what is truth, to see everything the way it is, and not the way you want it to be, to justify what you already believe. When you master awareness as a habit, you always see life the way it is, not the way you want to see it. You no longer try to put things into words to explain anything to yourself, and this keeps you from making assumptions. You only use the word to communicate with others, knowing that what you're communicating is just a point of view based on what you believe. That's why you need to listen and ask questions. With clear communication, people will give you all the information you need, and you won't have to make assumptions. The fourth agreement is always do your best. When you do your best, you don't give the voice of knowledge an opportunity to judge you. If the voice doesn't judge you, there's no need to feel guilty or to punish yourself. Doing your best, you're going to be productive, which means taking action and doing what you love to do, because it's the action that makes you happy. You're doing it because you want to, not because you have to. The best moments of your life are when you're being yourself. When you're in your creation and doing what you love to do, you become authentic. You're not thinking in that moment, you're expressing. When you're doing your best in your creation, the mind stops. You're alive again. You don't even notice how great you feel. The action, just the action, makes you feel great. When you have inaction, your mind has to have action, and that's an open invitation for the voice of knowledge to talk to you. But when you're absorbed in what you're doing, the mind hardly speaks.
You might want to review that paragraph on occasion, because you want to definitely be able to see the best moments of your life as they occur, because you need to identify them when you begin to oscillate and you begin to listen to the voice of knowledge, as he refers to it as. In other words, what's wrong is in comparison to what's right. That's what oscillation is. It's the comparison of what's wrong to what's right. When we say what's right, however, what we really are doing is, when we compare it, is compare what we thought was right. So we're deceiving ourselves in the comparison of what is wrong and what is right. We do not know what is right when we do know what is wrong. When we do know what is wrong, we need to take what's wrong into the truth about ourselves and see from the truth about ourselves in love, in kindness, and in joy, to see beyond what was wrong into what is only right. That's living in the present moment. The only way to live in the present moment is to not oscillate between what is wrong and what is right. In other words, don't compare it. We're not the mind that needs to do the comparison. We're the mind that needs to be released from the suffering of comparisons.
Even if you're using words in your art to write a poem, you're not thinking about the words. You're simply expressing your emotions. The words are the instrument, the code that you use for expression. If you're a musician playing music, there's no difference between you and the music. You're creating the music, you're enjoying every note, every sound, and it's a supreme pleasure. Just expressing yourself leads you into ecstasy because you're creating. This is life as an art. Everything in life is just a choice. You control the dream by making choices. Every choice has a consequence, and a dream master is aware of the consequences. I encourage you to take responsibility for every decision you make in life. No decision is right or wrong. What matters is the action that follows your choice. Life can be wonderful. If you love yourself, if you practice doing your best, very soon it becomes a habit. When doing your best becomes a habit, everything is a setup for you to be happy, just as you were when you were a very young child. But first you need to stop the internal dialogue. This is one of the biggest miracles that any human can experience. If you can stop the voice from talking to you, then you're almost free from being abused by all of the lies. People have asked me if I encourage the use of a mantra to eliminate the internal dialogue. I encourage you to use any trick that you can find to stop the chatter. There's no kitchen recipe. You can explore any number of ways until you find your own way. For some people, a mantra might be the miracle. For other people, meditation, contemplation, or music could be the miracle. For others, walking outdoors or just surrounding themselves with natural beauty could be the miracle. It could be dancing, yoga, running, swimming, or any exercise. It's up to you. There are many ways to quiet the mind if you just use them. But from my point of view, practicing the 4 agreements is the best way. The 4 agreements have the power to break thousands of little agreements that go against yourself, but they're not as simple as they look. Many people say the 4 agreements are changing my life, but at a certain point I cannot keep going. Well, if you cannot keep going, it's because you're facing a strong belief. And the faith you've invested in that belief is stronger than the faith you have available to change that belief. That's why it's important to practice recovering your faith with the little beliefs that go against yourself. Then you can go for the stronger, more challenging beliefs. Every time you practice the 4 agreements, their meaning goes a little deeper. At a certain point, when you've already broken many little agreements, you go a little deeper and deeper until the moment comes when you open your spiritual eyes. When you finally transform, your life becomes a masterpiece of dreaming, an expression of your emotional body, just the way it was before knowledge.
Okay, sorry, I might have muted you, Marlene. You probably wanted to say something? Maybe not. Maybe it just wasn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was I unmuted when I was sneezing? I'm sorry.
I think so, yeah. I think you were ready to sneeze. I muted you when, I think, and I caught it. So I didn't know what was exactly going to happen. But anyway, we're at the points to ponder. I'll read them through, and then we can use the last few minutes of how you want to use it, whatever way you want to use it. We won't have time to react to everything, perhaps, but I'll turn off the recording at the right time, And I will publish this recording probably on YouTube rather than just on sharing it privately. Points to ponder. The way to transform what you believe about yourself is to unlearn what you have already learned. When you unlearn, your faith returns to you, your personal power increases, and you can invest your faith in new beliefs. The four agreements have the power to help you unlearn the many ways you have learned to use the word against yourself. By following these agreements, you challenge all of the opinions and all of nothing but superstitions and lies. Instead, to be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. When the edifice of knowledge collapses, you have a second chance to create a story according to your integrity. You can use your attention for the second time to make a story based on the truth instead of on lies. In the dream of the second attention, you recover the power of your faith. Your will is free again, and what you can do with it has no limits. When you are absorbed in what you are doing, the mind hardly speaks. You're expressing what you really are, and just the action makes it great. When there is inaction, your mind has to have action, and that is an open invitation for the voice of knowledge to talk to you. Again, I would not really correct this, but I would say that in fact this needs a little bit deeper understanding that what it seems to say here for the average interpretation of what this might be saying. It seems like we have separated minds and we need to keep them that way, when in fact our one mind needs to integrate with only the truth and in fact become therefore unaware of the mistaken mind or of the confusions and difficulties and situations and circumstances as though there's any necessity for change. So there becomes a now one-minded way to see through the unreality, therefore never to be deceived by it again. The best moments of your life are when you are authentic, when you are being yourself, when you're in your creation and you are doing what you love to do. You become what you really are again. You are not thinking in the moment, you are expressing. Your emotions are coming out and you feel this great. Every time you practice the four agreements, their meaning goes deeper and deeper until the moment comes when you open your spiritual eyes. Then your life becomes an expression of your emotional body just the way it was before there was knowledge. And again, I'm a non-dual teacher and I don't disagree with this way to perceive. I simply say that it is in the non-perceiving reality of an integrative truth which is increasing in my mind that I see the simple joy of realizing there's nothing that ever can weaken me. And I do not need an emotional body, nor a thought body, nor any forms outside of my mind whatsoever at all. And so we'll leave it at that for the recording, and we'll come back next week to do the next chapter, which would be chapter 10. I'll turn off the recording here.